Here, I'll lay it out for you nice and simple. Shock does not spend the most money in the league. Players don't want to join dog shit teams and dog shit orgs. And people want to win. It's that simple. Okay? Dude, if Shock spends the most money in the league, you think Moth... You think we'd be able to keep Moth? Like, come on, dude. Like, money's not infinite. Money's not infinite.
Shock having the most expensive roster.
Hey, we're the Infamy Fantasy Sports team. We're hosting Fantasy Sports Contest at infamy.gg, so go sign up. But today we're talking about the Overwatch League off-season, kind of, and kind of all how the players are shifting around. We had an interesting clip from Super there where he's basically just lies it out that these players, they don't want to go to these bottom-of-the-barrel teams, no matter how big the check they're getting is, and they're willing to take a pay cut or even a bench spot, like a non-starting position where they could easily start on another team by to be on a team that's going to win and a team that's going to kind of raise their notoriety within the league and their reputation, and which is evident by the Shock, which just picked up Glister and Nero, who are two potential star DPS on any other team, but now who knows, their playtime's going to probably be way less on the Shock, but they have the potential to, if you win a championship, your stocks rise. So maybe in the following year, they could join one of those smaller teams for a much bigger salary. So what do you guys think about these players that choose to be on bigger teams instead of being the star of the shit pile?
I think it's the smart play that these players, they're like kind of forced to make, because realistically, when you're in the Overwatch League or any esports league, we talked about in our last video, you're facing a battle against irrelevancy, and it's bound to happen that no one's going to be on the top forever. So you're pretty much in a race against the clock, and these players have to do what they can to establish themselves and get that credibility. And what they're doing is going to winning teams. Yeah, you might not play, but like at least next year, you'll get more money if you win, and you'll get more star power on a lesser team if you do go to one. So it's a win-win either way. You just have to eat it up for the time being.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer, especially for like Overwatch League, like what Darren is saying. He only signed a year contract. Like they really wanted to get him for like a 2-year contract, but when you're one, you're like the Overwatch League content creator, right? You have the option of just going back to YouTube. They'll fall back on that, and if his content kind of drops off, then he can just sign another contract. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
it was
like,
interesting the way they phrased it as Super's coming back for like the last run for the three-peat. It's just like you wouldn't expect him to retire exactly, but maybe even he sees that, like, how long can I be a consistent pinch Rhine player that getting that check? I might want to start relying on my stream.
Yeah, and too, like I think it's a good fit for him too, just like for clutch players. Like you can sit on the bench and then they take you out when you need you. You know, is he going to start? Probably not. Is he going to be on every game? No.
There's a joke that it's like he just like that Rick and Morty bot where it's like, what is my purpose with Super's face? And it's like, you play King's Row.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's even if the meta allows it. Like King's Row, I think is like obviously the community favorite, and like you would just think Ryan Zarya, even if it's like when you're not in like the top tier on the ladder, it's like most people just default to that because it's the most fun map with the most fun tanks. It's like when you saw those characters not being played in the pro scenes, like a lot of people like, is this the right direction the game should be brought? Like so.
Yeah, the Orisa, like Double Shield was so good that Orisa becomes the de facto tank on King's Row.
Yeah, no one wants that. Horrific.
Yeah, no one wants that. But that's a whole different discussion of what the devs, like how the game should go, which does have a big impact on the league, obviously. But I found it interesting that they super brought up Moth, their main support for this whole time, past 3 years, who's been integral into their team, and he's like, we would have kept him if we could, but we got outbid by the Gladiators, is basically what he made it sound like, because he's got that prestige as a 2-time champion main support, even with like playing with a full Korean roster as a Western player, and it's like we didn't want to drop that big a bag on him, so we let him go. But meanwhile, they still got like another super hype main support and FD god. But still, it's interesting that you can build up your resume on a championship team and then
Go wherever.
cash out.
It goes both hands as well because just to like going more onto what Super's saying, like players that want to be on these dog shit teams is like the Shock has proven themselves over the past like 2.5 years, essentially since Krusty came over, and kind of before that, just like bringing on Super and Sinatra early on before they could play, just showed like they were kind of thinking the long run, and so now they have the reputation of being a good team, so their players are willing to take that pay cut and go to a winning team. Whereas like some of these other teams that have faulty paths, like they have like to get some of these star talents away from these top tier teams, they have to dish out the extra dollars.
Yeah.
Do you guys not see like a downside to it though? Like where like Nero is considered a really good player, really good DPS player, but if he's sitting on the bench for most of the year, even if he comes in, like wouldn't that decrease his stock? Like it's like, is he still good if he's not playing that much? Like it's hard to know since the game goes so fast.
It depends on how much they value winners. Like, can you be a bench rider winner and people will still fuck with you?
I think you have to take
Look at Chips.
No, not Chips.
Look at Chips.
Unfortunately, not him.
He's undefeated.
You have to take into you have to talk about Nevix, like how the hype around him was so high because he was the bench player for the off tank position under Troy.
He taught Saebyeolbe everything he knows.
Yeah. He was Saebyeolbe faster on Sigma apparently, but
and then couldn't show up on himself.
So like, I think that's like another thing you have to take into consideration if you're on like the bench player on like a top tier team, and then like you go test the free market, or it's like you want to go prove yourself, kind of like have that competitive edge and be like, you know what, I believe in myself, I want to win, but I also want to be playing and not just like being the extra man. So it's like he kind of went to like a kind of a shitty, like not a shitstorm of Toronto, but like there's a lot of things going on in Toronto that like didn't allow him to, I feel like, fully utilize his full potential. If like the hype around him is true, like all of it, like, oh, he's like a scrim god, he's like really good, like his stocks are really high, but then he goes on Toronto, it's like didn't have a great year, obviously. Nor did a lot of
toilet. He's never gonna get picked up again because he's also on one of the most competitive roles in the league in the off tank. So
so it's like you can't just go to like a random team if you're gonna test that free market. You have to kind of go onto a team that you see like a legitimate chance to win.
I do think there's something to be said for the teams that like the players that have good performances on shit team, like Youngbong on Boston. You could always be like damn, that guy's carrying as hard as he can on a flex support, and it's still not enough. But like, so you're always gonna be like, this guy's good. But and then Crimzo, who recently got signed to Houston, was saying that he was the second most sought after flex support after Shu, like in NA, I guess, and he was on Dallas, which was a dumpster fire, but I guess his stats were still good. I don't really believe that he was the second most sought after, like, his word.
Yeah, I mean, he was saying a lot of words recently too.
He was like the last minute addition onto the Dallas roster. He wasn't like the initial
week one. He wasn't even on the team, I'm pretty sure.
Could have been negotiations, Jake. You don't know.
Yeah, but he could have a nice lawyer.
I mean,
but, just like a side thing on him doing that, I feel like it's like Houston knows they're not going to win, so it's like, we're going to be the drama team. Go, Crimzo, go leak all this shit on stream. Like, get people talking about us because we'll be talking about our gameplay.
Yeah, at least they'll click on the website and we'll get some ad revenue. Jesus. We're getting into prize pools.
He's supporting the team out of the game, man.
Yeah. The true flex support. But I mean, I want to touch real quick on something that Jake brought up. Like, one is the bench retirement, right? Like where these veteran players just go and sit and like, yeah, all right, I'm just gonna be the coach for the team, or I'm gonna be the team captain, and like kind of get these this new blood to get them a championship. And then two, like if you are somebody that's a high value player and you are on the bench, and then you try to go out like on your own to like a maybe not as good org or team, is it really their fault when they don't perform because their team is shit?
I
think
think he can still put up a decent performance. Like, you can't run off that bench legacy forever. You got to show something.
Yeah, but if you're getting rolled, your whole team is just getting rolled, and you're the last one. Like, what really can you do? Like, we play League, we know what happens. Like, it's the same thing in Overwatch. Like,
I mean,
if League players will know the problems of like one kid just being garbage, and then you get steamrolled. Like Overwatch, it's the same thing.
There is no carry in Overwatch.
I mean, like it's kind of the same situation around the rumors with why Doublelift retired. Like, there's like the trade negotiations and like things weren't going to go like a certain way for him to be on the team. So he's like, no. And then apparently some people say like he went out and shopped himself around, and then like by the like the top tier teams in LCS are like, no, we got our ADC, and he's like, and by the time he got to like the middle of the pack teams, like to like the lower end, he's like, fuck that. That at this point, it's just gonna hurt my career and legacy at this point. So it's like I'd rather it's like better for him to retire. So
yeah, quit while you're ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting what you do in like kind of the tail end of your career like that, and like prevalently like with Seoul picking up Saebyeolbe, you know, he's such like a huge legacy of a player and like just kind of known for his like captain leadership skills. So, and the argument is that that's kind of what Seoul needs, since they were so inconsistent, and they had really talented players like Prophet, but they were, you know, one week they'd look amazing, the next week terrible. So maybe having someone consistent like that, like a leadership role. But I don't really see it if he doesn't like play. Like, I don't, how's he like? He would just be a coach. Like,
I did see people also talk about the benefits that Saebyeolbe has, and one of the great things about him was that he was just always able to remain calm in clutch out situations. So I did see people say that maybe Saebyeolbe can just be that player when you're like tied, you need to break the overtime game. You put in Saebyeolbe and you know he's not gonna.
But do you put in like you want to play him on Tracer? Do you put in Prophet in, who's like considered one of the best players of all time and has an amazing Tracer, or Saebyeolbe because like he might keep a cooler head and help everyone? Like, you'd probably want to go with your higher skill player, I think.
Yeah.
I think that like in Overwatch League, like how much they've professionalized it, maybe that's not the best argument for him. Like if you're talking about like a different game, like let's say Fortnite, yeah, that's probably a huge factor, having some professionalism and being able to keep a cool head, like in a clutch situation. But like most of these players are now professionals. Like like you can see it too, like why Saebyeolbe isn't so good over the years is because the league has just gotten better over time.
That's where I was gonna get at. It's like, year one is like when kind of Saebyeolbe like really like blew up. It's like he's like considered the best Tracer, and now you look at who the considered the best Tracer, and beyond that is Striker, where Striker went from the Uprising when they were, you know, decent to pretty good, got off that ship at the right time, for sure. And now he's considered like he's like a staple like starter on the best team in the whole league. So and we know
he was also the like kind of the like him and Saebyeolbe were like,
we're like
1 and 2. Who's gonna be who's
exactly
the best Tracers?
Now look at the things like Saebyeolbe is like on. He was like some people might have thought he wouldn't find another team. Now he's on Seoul, where Striker is a really hot commodity. And some people think that New York didn't have like the best, you know, coaching structure or just like infrastructure around them. Do you think if Saebyeolbe was on the Shock, or if there was another team that had a high tier infrastructure to help support him, where Tracer wasn't where Tracer wasn't the meta and they were still able to find use for him, do you think Saebyeolbe would have developed a wider hero pool like Striker did, and now become like a huge DPS name?
That's a good point, because technically Saebyeolbe and Striker were considered on the same level when they first started, like you said, Jake, and it really goes into like a nature versus nurture. Like Striker got presented with all these opportunities and glamorous things to prop him up, and then Saebyeolbe was kind of left in the shit, and you just see like both ends of the coin. I honestly don't know the answer to that. That's
and
it's like the chicken or the egg.
And you can also go on the point where, do you think riding the bench on a good team is valuable, even when New York was still like a top tier? Like now they're kind of leaning more towards mid tier. You look at Pine, like a lot of the hit scan people, it's like they were really good when the hit scan was like the dominant meta, and now or like the being a Widowmaker specialist now, they're kind of shunned off to the side, like the Taimus, the Taviks, those people of old. Well, they have some other issues that kind of force them out the
I
door.
don't know. Hitscan had a pretty big year this year. Like people like KSP kind of carrying their team on the Ash like all year. So and even Pine is looking for a team again. So maybe it will be the return of the Hitscan gods. But yeah, I don't know. With Saebyeolbe, I feel like he does bring a lot to having him on your team, like culture wise. But I don't know, because he still does have sparks of like, oh, that's the guy. But he's not like, I don't know.
But is that because like he seems like a friendly guy? He seems like someone you want to hang out with, whereas like as good as Striker is, like you don't really know much about Striker. He's not really a marketable person, where Saebyeolbe is, and that's why there's such like a crowd reception of like when he got dropped from New York. There's a huge kind of like sadness around the scene.
Yeah, because he was New York.
And that's what Jake was saying, previous Overwatch League player. He was saying how, from his experience, there are like players who are like Striker who are just like really good, and then there's players like Saebyeolbe who can just like walk in a room and like the whole atmosphere changes, and like everyone, it just synergizes the team, completes the team pretty much. And I think that is an underestimated value, pretty much from what Jake was saying, is like people underestimate how much team synergy and just enjoying being around your teammates can influence your play.
Yeah, because how many stacked teams on paper have just like not been able to put it together? Sometimes you need the glue. Someone that can do that. Be the captain.
Yeah.
You're saying, Blake?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's sad is that the coaches don't do this in this league. Like it's the players. It's like you need to have somebody on your bench that's a veteran player to like coach your high skill ceiling players into like a cohesive unit. Like this league is a fucking mess, to be honest with you.
Well,
like they just try to plug in high value players into like a random team, and then when it doesn't work out, they just drop them. Like I don't understand.
To be fair, this is a very young game still. When you compare it to League, where League is just over its decade-old lifespan, Overwatch is like not even half that long. And so it's going to take a few years for these the top tier players to retire and then fully transition into a coaching staff. The ones that are able to transition, not all good players are going to make a good coach. So like a lot of these coaches, like you were saying, that aren't like kind of like really taking helm with the team behind the scenes, and that they don't play the game or whatever. They're not playing at a high level, because there aren't that many people capable to have that background yet. So it's going to take some years for like these ex pros to come in and transition to a coaching.
I mean, a lot of coaches don't play the game. It's not really about if they play the game or not. It's more about like you look at Seoul, right? The reason that people are like, yeah, Saebyeolbe is probably going to be good for their team is to get the glue together. Why isn't the coaching staff doing that? And like same thing when you see when you get a really high contract player onto a team and then they're a flop. Like what happened in Toronto. Like you just does it come down to is it the player's fault or is it the coaching?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, because like you coming in, you're like top tier talent, or like you're a pro, and it's like so you have to like, the respect goes both ways. So it's like if you're like playing at the top of the level of like everyone in the world, and then this other person who doesn't play the game or isn't playing in your games and ranked. Are you like, it takes a lot to like earn that respect to listen to that person, where it's like you take TSM and League, where Bjergsen is coming into the main coaching position, where people are going to listen to him because he's such he was like one of the poster childs of LCS. So like if you're like, even if like you're someone who's been in the LCS for a while, you're still going to listen to him because he's earned that respect for being there for so long, where the coaches in OWL they don't have that opportunity yet. The game is still, the league is still so new.
I think the value of a captain position, having that like ground general who's on equal terms with the players, like respected enough, like their skills respected enough that they are taking one of the 12 slots, but also having that like kind of interpersonal skills that you need as a coach to be able to like manage people and personalities and get them like working, because it's such a team focused game. But I think those are things that the coaches do need, though. They need like the macro understanding of the game and like how the big picture stuff should work, but without taking too like micro control and like kind of letting the players play their own game, and also just the interpersonal skills to keep everything smooth. Okay,
Yeah.
one more thing I wanted to bring up about the players is just as a Dallas fan and a Houston hater, I just love that all the like, Houston Outlaws are just trying to like get all these big players like Shu and Moth, and I can't think who else, but like they're offering them these big contracts, and it's like between them and one other team, and the player always chooses the other team, so they're just left with like no one. Nero, I think, was another one. So like that just goes back to what we were saying before. It's like it doesn't matter how big the bag you're throwing as. I don't know how big the bag is, but they want to be on a team that wins. And they were like,
Yeah,
well, we saw you playing hydration on main tank last year, and then we haven't picked up a new main tank.
And you
so
have
I'm not-
Laws and McCree for a while. It's like, oh god.
Yeah, I've saw some questionable decisions. I think I'll go over to Gladiators or Shop, you know.
Amen.
Yeah. It just like the main incentive for players is to win. That's the only way to stay in the league and stay relevant in the league. So they're willing to do whatever it takes to get it. And is that necessarily a bad thing though? Like we're talking about these kids wanting to win as much as isn't that what all we like want from our kids in our ranked games? Like just want to win.
Yeah,
And-
exactly.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
it's-
look, it comes down to like, all right, yeah, of course they want to win, but like, why do they move around so much? Like,
I think
even
it's
from
interesting
top,
Because they're already known. Well, it's a variance, but one of it's because the known quantities, like all these orgs want to win now, and so it's like, are you going to take the risk on some unproven talent, or are you going to go with like someone who's may not be the best, but they have been proven to like at least hold their own in the league to a certain extent.
Yeah, I find it interesting players like OG who has never really been on a successful team, but he still has like this level of like maybe because there's not that many main tanks, and he has shown like glimpses of brilliance, but it's just like he's probably still gonna get one last chance this year out of like that's like 4 years of never being able to really
Do anything.
bring a team up. And I think I think he was the main problem, at least his synergy with Space was the problem on the Gladiators. So it's interesting that I think he's rumored to go to like Mayhem, so which is like a pretty solid all around team.
That's an odd pickup. That just sounds
Well, they lost their tank. They lost Fate to Shanghai.
Yeah.
It's mad funny. I was the Coach Moon of Shanghai. He loves Fate, and he like got rid of Fearless and Stan One. It's like these are main
Yeah.
tank now.
I mean, San Juan's on Boston now.
Yeah, Boston doesn't look that bad. It's like him. I'm 37. Kept Young
I
Bum.
don't know about I'm 37. That could be a hit.
It's something.
It's something.
I don't think Jerry was all that great. I think he just had a funny name.
I don't know. It's weird. It's weird to see like the low tier teams like still trying to build their franchises, while a lot of the top tier teams are now fine tuning and kind of just picking up the best talent to try to come for like the 3 contenders that there are in the league, and then everybody else is kind of just who's gonna be mid tier. And we were talking about it off camera, but like, should there be like a division between like these are like the best teams, and then these are the worst teams, and then we'll like relegate somebody
I mean,
to be
Yeah,
like
because there's like that's what I wanted to bring up actually. Thank you. Yeah, like because there's such a clear divide between the top half and the bottom half of the teams, and because it is a franchise, these people bought into it. But it's like you should be held accountable to keep the level of competition up. So I think you should be able to be relegated down to like the bottom 8 half of the team, or like bottom 10, and have a B league of the Overwatch League. Like I think that'd be great, because and then those teams, like you could get these players for like a cheaper price. That's already what's happening. Like players don't want to go there, but it's like
that's
if you're not that
that's
good.
the exact format of the at least the North American League for Rainbow Six. It's like there for the major events and stuff.
Right.
There's the
Because
top
that's-
4, and then there's the bottom 4, and the top 3 automatically make it, and then fourth best team, so the last one in the top 4 gets to play against whoever wins out of their series of the bottom 4. So whoever comes out on top of the bottom 4 plays against the last place of the top 4 to get that last qualifying spot for the major event.
yeah, and I think that would work if they had more teams. As soon as you said that there's 4 teams in each, like it's kind of just a round robin of, or like there's definitely going to be one dominant team on like the top.
I mean,
And
well,
then
yeah, it
everybody
is a
else
round
is-
robin, so it's like there's the three dust teams. There's the TSM, Dark Zero, and SSG who are always there. And then Oxygen has kind of closed that gap. So, but they're
There's
like,
really only 8 teams.
yeah, for
Yeah.
USA. Then there's 4 teams in Canada, and then like they factor in for the majors as well. But it's that's the same format you're kind of talking about. But without they have relegation where that's causing own issues. But with Owl being franchised, there's no relegations because they already bought theirs. They paid their
Yeah, well, it's like you can be guaranteed like top 20. Congrats, but if you get dropped
you're
down
gonna
to the
get-
B League,
You get pooped on.
Yeah.
You get pooped on.
Mhm.
But like honestly too, then like what they were talking about too. They're talking about reducing the buy-ins. Then you can have tiers to it. You can have a B buy-in and an A buy-in. That way, it's like,
Yeah,
all right, yeah,
well-
you got big money to actually sign these big players. Like you're in A tier, and you can pay that $20 million or whatever it is to be in A tier. Like, is
yeah,
it like
making tier 1.5 instead of a tier 2, so people actually care about it. Like,
Yeah, because honestly, too, like I think it would help onboard some, like, because like I'm looking at what the Outlaws are gonna have to do. They're gonna have to like scout hard in the rough to try to fill
Mhm.
out their team
yeah.
because
So,
they're gonna be.
it's like,
And like being in the B tier, it'll give you the leeway and freedom to try new things. So maybe these bench players that we're seeing, they can get some shine.
I
when they
mean,
get-
that's what franchising should have done. That's why LCS, like the owner, like selling point for the owners for going into franchising was like, all right, you're not gonna get, there's no fear of getting relegation, so you're more likely, you're more inclined to take bigger risks on players like these unknown talents, like kind of growing people through your farm leagues and stuff like that. So that's kind of where that should
But
be
that go-
happening. But I think if they do cut the amount owed to Activision and stuff for the teams that are already in, that would allow some of the bottom tier teams to hopefully experiment more, and kind of like take gambles
Yeah,
on
be
people.
more competitive.
Because
It
like
would just
a
make
lot
the
of
whole
them,
league
like
more competitive.
the teams like Boston, like Houston, have like such shitty reputations now, that they almost have to like completely like nuke everything and like start from scratch to like,
Come
kind of
back.
get some goodwill back for like, better names to like, you know what, I'll take a risk on Boston or Houston next year. So right now, nobody wants to unless they have to.
I kind of like the idea of letting tier 2 teams like take a shot at the big dogs, in tournaments that don't like the tournament system where it doesn't exactly add to your season standing, but because they're like, we only have 4 APAC teams, we might let like the top Korean contenders and Chinese teams and one wild card participate in the tournament. So it's like, see what you really got, because there was like a time with like Fusion University where they were like, people were like, they could beat like 90% of these out teams, so it's like, all right, let's see, and then that hypes up the tier 2 scene, and let's get these players some
Yeah.
spotlight. So
I've been saying that since the beginning. It'll just create a healthy ecosystem where you have these players that go into the tier 2 and then they compete and then they have that wild card opportunity to get into the league and then they can show what they got. It's just
The thing you have to take from the players' point of stance is like the fear of getting shown up by a tier 2 talent and then getting your job stolen out of like a show match that could have for like X amount of reasons. You just get the short end of
Well,
the
if you're
stick.
not the best,
it's not a show
you're
match
not the
though.
best.
It's like the Overwatch League tournaments are like, it's your
Yeah.
opportunity to gain bonus wins onto your season. Unless you get beat by a tier 2 team, then sorry, you don't
But
get
yeah,
your bonus wins.
I have no
the
remorse for
money.
you if you lose to someone who's quote unquote worse than you. That just makes you bad. I'm sorry.
I mean,
like-
all right, then take it from the team perspective. You've paid a shit ton of money for someone who's supposed to be really good, and they just get fucking exposed, spawn camped by
bro,
some
I'm
tier
go-
2 talent. Then
who I'm
that just
going
makes
to?
that check that you just wrote to that person make you look so stupid.
Yeah, and I'm going straight to the coach and I'm saying, why didn't you know about this kid, buddy? Isn't this your
Yo,
job?
GM.
Isn't
Yeah.
this your job?
And
to
then
know?
that makes you look even more dumb because that's the person you hired to be the coach and the scouting
I like
personnel.
this. Shake things up, man.
But that goes like what we were
expose.
saying off camera, where like the whole Overwatch League is centered around these investments, and everything is just expedited because these large investments are put on the table. Like the coaches have such a short time period to work with these players because they want to do short contracts because players turnover is so quick. So they have these players on short contracts. Coaches don't have time to cultivate them. players go bad, and it just all starts from this huge amount of money that they feel like they have to get an ROI on, and it just rushes everything. So how do you have to fix it from the top down, and I think the budget cut for investing in a team will definitely help with that.
Oh, certainly. It should.
Yeah, I do think it all kind of does come back to the game, though, and because it's like, how are you supposed to build a team when one year Widow is dominant and the next year there's no hit scan at all? Like,
And now
that's like
you're in the awkward space of when is Overwatch 2 coming out, and when is that going to affect everything?
Do you put more
What does that
money into
mean?
these current players? Is there going to be Overwatch 2 players that are just
Is there
better?
someone who's just good at push that we don't know about?
Yeah, exactly. Like the push god who's just been going off. He has his own custom game browser that he plays every day. This kid is real, I'm telling you.
Yeah, he hacked a copy of the BlizzCon demo, and he's been playing it nonstop.
Yeah, it's just hard because yeah, I don't know. I kind of commended some of the teams that were going budget last year because I thought they were just keeping an open roster spots to be more flexible for meta changes. Like, okay, we need to get an Ash God real quick. Okay, we didn't blow all our budget and our roster spots, so we can pick this guy up. But it's more of like a mad scramble for talent. And there are teams that like to do the budget, like they go in wanting to do a budget thing, but there's so many available players that like when it gets winding down and closer to the new season starting, it's like, oh, this guy's still up, Rascal's still available, Libero, like, oh, maybe if I get him, and him, we could actually have a shot at this and have a decent season. But it's like, oh wow, I just spent all my money.
Yeah, instead of developing your team. Rough.
Should have got a coach that was worth it to him.
Yeah. That's what
One
I'm
of the
saying.
four. One of the four.
I'm going to. Why'd I hire you?
Get Saebyeolbe in here.
He'd be a sweet coach eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like if he doesn't do well,
Dude, all you need to be a good coach is to be a homie, like.
Yeah, to be a homie and know what you're talking about. That's exactly what you need as a coach. Like for video games, like it's not like we're fucking out here running drills to train your body. Yo, play the game with each other.
That they wanted them to like execute certain plays in game, and it's just like it just didn't work. Like,
yeah, because it's all
it's too
like we
rigid.
were talking about this off camera, but like most of the time it comes down like these top level players, like you can't teach the game sense that they have. Like it comes from like they inherently have an understanding of the game. Yeah, and it's just more about getting the synergies of how they think about the game together, or getting them all. It's more mental, and that's why you see so many orgs spending so much money on like getting their mentality right, anger management for some of these players, meditation, all this stupid bullshit to get them all on the same wavelength or the same thought process, so that they all act as a unit. And I think that's like inherently what being a bro like Saebyeolbe does.
Do you think some of the kind of the veterans of the scene should be taking a note out of Core JJ's book, where he's kind of organizing in-houses, where each team has like 1 to 2 either current LCS players or retired LCS players, and the other 3 are kind of either amateur league or academy or like really high up on the ladder, but they're all like too young to play in the LCS, to kind of give them some reps against top tier players in the NA and kind of get them in a better learning environment outside of ladder, because ladder is shit in every game to a certain extent. Do you think that should be happening right now in the off season for NA?
Bro, for some of these
Overwatch?
teams that are dog shit, yeah, that's I think their only option is to find talent. There's got to be a way to cultivate talent outside of what already exists. Because we've already seen that throwing money at the problem doesn't fix it. You have to have a base, and then you have to find players that you can plug in. If they're high value, great. But at a certain point, like there's a reason that Shock is winning all the time, and it's because they have a strong foundation, and then they can pick up players to fill in, to just fine tune their franchise. Yeah, it comes in the business.
In that super clip, he mentions it. He says the Shock isn't throwing the most money at their players, and they're winning everything.
And they don't need to.
Yeah,
they
Yeah, they
don't
don't need to. That's the whole point.
So it's money. Money isn't what's doing it.
Yeah, but I think about like to what you were saying, Jake, about Queen's Gambit, where she's like going up against like top Russians and shit, and then this guy she beat when she was 14 was like, "Let me coach you," and it's like, "Bitch, what? I beat you when I was 14. Why would I take lessons from you?" But
I
it's
just
like, there's
started
things
watching that show last night. So good.
Oh,
But yeah,
so
I
good.
know
Yeah.
exactly-
When
yeah,
she
it's
goes
so-
in to like I think the Kentucky State tournament, and like the first guy, or she just won it, and like she goes into the next tournament, and she's like, "Hi, I forget her name," and the guy goes like, "Oh shit." And just immediately cuts, like just her just handing in her like victorious little pamphlet, like, "Ah, yes, I just shit on someone."
Yeah, so
Yeah,
Good.
the editing is good in that shit.
but you can learn so much from people like who aren't as good as you, but they can see things from a different perspective. And just having older players who have seen different eras of the game, they might see something that you didn't even know or didn't play during. Because some like the revolving door that is Overwatch League players, they seem to stay routinely young, so they're not gonna have the knowledge of like the triple tank meta. It may not be relevant, but who
might
knows?
come back.
Yeah, it might come back. You know,
It is things you can
Not
take
that
from
it
every
would-
meta and apply it
yeah.
to others. You never know what
not that it
could
would
be
come back because they have
applicable.
222.
Yeah, so
Yeah, but no, but they learned a lot. Players like leveled up big time with goats and like just micro interactions and shit because it was all about cooldown management stuff like that. So I think in a lot of ways people got better, like the skill raised even when goats was over. But it's still like now it's more skill based.
So I think if there's a price kind of slash on these teams, they should be taking, I think, the Cloud9 100 Thieves route of like scouting people who are like 13, 14 right now, and like hopefully the league lasts that long where they can actually play.
That's a big gamble, yeah.
Yeah, but like they help kind of find talent young years down the road that could actually potentially play, and even if like they don't end up on your team ultimately, you still garner that good reputation with them, where like you it might cost them to another org to sign them even more because I want to go to Cloud9 because they believed in me when I was 14. They helped nurture and grow me up to when I'm 18 and eligible to play. And like I'm willing to go to Cloud9 for X amount. You have to pay me that much plus whatever to be like, no, I'm not going to Cloud9. I'm going to whoever. So
I
I
don't
mean, it's
know.
kind of what
These-
Fusion did with Alarm. Yeah, go
These
ahead.
children
Yeah.
have no loyalty. These children have no loyalty. What do you mean? Do you know this generation?
no, that's the
Bigger
thing.
bag.
If you watched the episode of the Crackdown with Carlos from G2, he goes about like talking about loyalty and like kind of that's like one of the first
You
things he
have to-
talks to like when he's signing a
You have
player.
to
It's
think
like
about it from the perspective of a young kid. This org just gave you the opportunity to do your dream job at the age of 14. Like you're.
I mean, I
There's
get it, but I'm more concerned about the Overwatch League culture and how the league actually works and the politics of the league. Like you're rotating; these kids rotate teams so often, and it's not like a stigma of like, oh yeah, you left your team. It's like, no, you want to win, or no, you want to do this. Like there's always an excuse at some point. So I like for league, yeah, okay. It's a more established game, like Steve was talking about before, and they happen to hold on to players a lot longer. Like in this revolving door that the Overwatch League, trying to do that like 1-to-1, I don't think would work well. But I also think that like the lower, like if they did what we were talking about earlier with a tiered league, I think that it would give the opportunity of these smaller teams to maybe, like we were talking about, try and experiment and maybe even invest in some younger players and then build them up for like next season or the season after that. Because like
RIP Sugar
G2,
Free.
yeah, but like you can't like if you watch Overwatch, like, you can't deny how good G2 is, and now it's been their method for a while of building players from within rather than
that's like the one scene they're not playing.
what?
It's like the one league they're not
G2
in.
isn't, yeah, G2 isn't in Overwatch.
Yeah,
No,
I think
in
League of
League.
Legends, not Overwatch League.
Yeah, in League, but like it
Standard
works
League.
there. Yeah, but it's just like it's. I was talking more about like trying to transfer it to like Overwatch League. There's a certain way to do it, but like in the atmosphere that it is now, it's not viable. You have to build you're either good at the beginning. Yeah, you either have the fans now and can do whatever you want, or you're trash and no one wants to play with you. And you're gonna get lucky with some random talent.
I'm curious if there's any way to really like make it so you have like 20 shocks instead of like 3 potential shocks, and then like huge mid tier, it's just a giant mess, and then like the bottom 5, which will never stand a chance.
Well, I think eventually the mid tier teams would level up if they consistently play against the top tier teams. Like if they're like 9s,
it's true.
If like they're really the pinnacle and they constantly have to play against those mid tier teams because there's no one else at that level, those mid tier teams are gonna level up faster.
Then
look at Shanghai
Dragons. Create the
atmosphere. They got like better and better. Shanghai Dragons never won a game, but they got better and better throughout the year playing against teams and like growing. And at the end, it was like, I think Jake from that was like, you if you were playing Shanghai and like another team you scrimmed against, like you practiced for Shanghai, like because you didn't want to be that one loss that because they were getting serious at the end. So.
I mean, to be honest with you, like the atmosphere just has to change in that, like you can't, like a tiered system would allow these teams to experiment a lot and maybe find the talent. Because I feel like Shanghai got lucky with like their players had high skill ceiling, so putting the investment into them actually got them to that level. Like it worked out. But like, how often is that not going to happen? Where it's like, okay, you have a situation where it's like, yeah, you can play in this league, but at a certain point, you're not getting any better.
I mean, I don't want to drag it on too much, but it's like when there's always that huge fan backlash, just playing devil's advocate of like when you kind of take out someone who's been in the league, even if they're not like a huge name, there's going to be like, oh, why isn't this person playing? And like you bring in this no name, it's like, oh man, blah, 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 blah. And they're just like, just Redditors getting angry at like not seeing their absolute favorite person playing, and then it's like, oh, and then say you lose one game with this new person, you just see this endless shitstorm on Reddit and stuff like that. So
yeah, I wouldn't want to be a GM. That shit sounds like ass.
Don't go on Reddit Overwatch. If you're a GM.
Yeah, don't go on Reddit.
I mean, I feel like Blake, you could be a good one. Like you just not personal with any of them. Okay. You're just like, your shit gone. Get out of here.
Yeah,
next one.
You're gone. Next. I'm
Jimmy, why didn't you hit the headshot? Oh, get him out.
I have no problem firing people.
It's amazing.
Oh, Jimmy, you better hit this headshot, or it's like you're going to Boston. Like, oh.
There's a new player on Chengdu called Jimmy.
Amazing.
Let's go.
New boy.
Jimmy.
It's serious.
Jimmy.
Is Leave still on Chengdu, or did he get dropped?
Leave is still on Chengdu.
Oh,
yeah, they finalized the roster in Jinmu.
Oh.
But no, I would love Blake to be like the GM for Dallas. Like every time things go wrong for Dallas, they have like the most like rabid fan base. They're like, they just hashtag fire the coach goes immediately. Like they've cycled through, now they're on their third
Blake
coach.
would be the one to start it. Tweet send.
You make a Twitter poll like fire Kai Kai?
Do I fire the coach? Do I fire the coach?
$5.
Yeah, as long as it's not the GM. As long as it's not the GM, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. Stay on the social media manager's good side. They might be like, fire the GM? Don't fire
why?
the GM.
Yeah, if you put that up, you're fired.
Tier 3 sub to me, you can watch it live.
Oh, but I was looking at something today where it was like, how quickly can you get fired? And like somebody was like, I'm pro union from the WWE, fired her in like 6 minutes.
I saw that.
Oh man,
Mr. McMahon ain't having it.
Yeah, and that's a GM I can get behind.
My wrestling slaves.
That's a GM I can get behind.
All right, well, we are the Infamy Fantasy Esports team, hosting Fantasy Fortnite and Fantasy Apex Legends tournaments at infamy.gg. Go sign up, and we'll see you next time.